Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. On today's episode, I'll be discussing short-term rentals.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. This is Scott Whitwam, and today I'll be discussing short-term rentals with my good friend, Palm Springs real estate broker, Gabe Franco. Gabe, I'm glad to have you with me today and that you're able to be available to have this discussion on the podcast today.
Hey, glad to be with you, Scott. Yeah, man, let's do this.
Okay, so your real estate brokerage name is Royale Real Estate, correct?
Correct. Yep, and we're headquartered out in.
Right?
What was that?
Did I pronounce it correct?
You did, Scott. Good job, man. That's about 50-50. Some people are like Quinta, so you did good, man. And Royal, whatever. I just turned anything close.
There you go. Well, why don't you tell me a little bit about your real estate brokerage? I know you're in kind of the Coachella, Palm Springs area, but for our viewers here, for our podcast audience, why don't you tell me a little bit about what your brokerage is doing?
Sure. So we're located technically in La Quinta, California, which is part of the Coachella Valley. Most people know Palm Springs. We're in about 30-minute drive from downtown Palm Springs. And it's certainly a tourist destination. It's kind of a second home market. We have a lot of visitors that drop in from all over the country. But a lot of our folks come out from LA, Orange County, San Diego. It's an easy about 2-hour drive from that area.
Now, do you do business in the entire area or just in the La Quinta area?
So with our offices in La Quinta, we have two sides to our business. We do vacation rentals, which I think is what we're going to probably talk most of our time today on, but we also have a residential brokerage side. On the brokerage side, we do business all across the valley, all the way to Palm Springs. On the vacation rental side of our business, we're primarily in La Quinta, Indio, in Indian Wells, which is about a 15 to 20 minute drive area from our offices here in La Quinta.
Okay. Well, your brokerage is a little bit like mine. How many agents do you currently have in the office or working for you?
Yeah, so we have about 7 agents in our brokerage, and some are in the office occasionally. A lot of them work remotely. But I love the fact we're just we're a boutique firm, and kind of have an investment focus is probably the thing that sets us apart because of the vacation rental side to our business. We understand the numbers and the management and that side of things. So that's kind of our niche out here.
Yeah, and I knew short-term rentals was a big part of your business. And that's why I kind of wanted to have you on today to talk about that short-term rental market.
Sure.
Maybe you can tell me a little bit about your experience then with short-term rentals.
Sure. So I started. I had my license. I had to look this up. I can't believe I've been doing this for a while, but actually, 2004 is when I got my real estate license after moving out here from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so been just over 20 years as a licensed agent. I got my broker's license about 6 years after that. And I started Royale Vacation Rentals in 2009, just after the big crash there. I'd learned the business through another company as an agent, frontline agent for them. And then as the market was changing, I could kind of see things that seemed like the writing was on the wall, that change was coming. And I had some good friends in my life to just kind of motivate me and push me a little bit into to taking that leap to start my own brokerage. And so we did that. So it's been the vacation rental side of our business primarily since 2009. And that's where we manage our short-term rentals. We also do monthly rentals as part of that. And then we started the real estate side to our business, Royale Real Estate, about 7 years ago. And so then we've been pairing kind of both sides to that. The rental side to the business has a team of 4. And the agent side, like I discussed, we have about 7 agents on that side. So that's kind of currently where we land. On the vacation rental side, we manage about 65 properties. They range from 2-bedroom condos to 5-bedroom estate golf course type pool homes. So that's kind of the scope of what we manage right now on that side.
Were you doing real estate when you were in Tulsa, or was this a new thing when you moved out to, the Palm Springs area? You just decided, hey, I'm going to go get my real estate license.
Yeah, no, actually, in Oklahoma, I had been in the communication space, like multimedia. That was what my degree was in. But I always loved working with people and solving problems. And so I worked in the kind of the back end of the television network business, where we did a lot of backhaul to videos, football games, CNN, Fox, ESPN, that kind of thing. And when my wife and I moved out here to Oklahoma, it was a brand new slate, and I just felt like, you know what, let's give real estate a try. In California at the time, it was a little bit of sticker shock coming from Oklahoma as far as the cost of real estate, and I figured, you know what, the cost of those houses, maybe I could get in and make a living doing real estate. So it's been quite a journey, I'll tell you that.
So you started that portion. You said you got your license in 2004, but you started that portion in 2007, 2009?
Yeah, so I started in real estate, trying to sell homes for about 18 months, and then after that, and I'll say not successfully. I can admit to that. It was quite a journey, learning the business, learning how to prospect. It's one thing to pass your license; it's another thing to learn the business of real estate. And
A lot of people don't realize that real estate is a business, and I do it on, obviously on the brokerage side, but I do it on the investing side, and we run into the same thing on either side of it. People think that it's a job, I've got a job in real. Well, no, you don't. You got to go out and figure out how to get clients and market. And so, yeah, I love that comment.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of my learning curve. So I transitioned into being an employee for a vacation rental company, and that's where I learned the rental business. Learned the interaction with the owners, or interaction with the renter side of our business, and then in 2009 transitioned to starting my own rental company. So I did that, so learned that on the ropes with them for several years, and then started our own. Um, And when I started Royale Vacation Rentals, that was really the beginning of kind of the online distribution portals, and the sites beginning to try to aggregate central locations for marketing and distribution of the vacation rental properties. Prior to that, it was kind of individual owners and property managers, and the big players like Vrbo and Airbnb came in, and I kind of saw the opportunity to kind of shift platforms, use the software to create more efficiency, both in distribution and in management. And that was kind of our niche when we started. So even though we started with like 9 properties, we were able to get, frontline distribution to all of our owners right out of the gate. And that's what set us kind of apart, because we were kind of the early adopters on that side of things. And it wasn't very long before we went from our 9 properties to about 45 or 50, pretty quickly there.
Well, that's pretty good. Now, you were mentioned like in 2009 when you kind of got into the brokerage side of thing, that you had friends kind of pushing you. What was kind of the inspiration of that? Because, I didn't do that until 2013, but what was kind of the motivation? What was kind of the key for your friends being able to go, hey, you need to take this leap?
Well, there was a couple of things. I mean, one was the people that knew me, that believed in me, really even before I could see the big picture. They could see some of the qualities they would describe, like my integrity and my follow through. And those were segments in my space that were not very prevalent. A lot of agents and brokers and companies were cutting corners and telling half truths about this and that. And I just knew on the inside of me the way I've been raised, and with the faith that I have on the inside, there's just a better way. And so for me, up until that point, I will say, I had pretty much a kind of an employee mindset, just the minimum getting in, when's the clock hit 5 so I can get out. And that was really an embracing the, more than the minimum, and then sticking to the values on the inside of me, which is part of what kind of pushed me towards taking that step towards launching on my own. And so, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that
I've been in this industry long enough to say it is sometimes difficult to find people in the real estate industry that have integrity. You know what I mean? So people who will do what they say they'll do.
yeah.
They really uphold the commitment to fiduciary duty, putting other people's you know benefits before your own.
Yeah.
You're not just chasing checks. So that is a big key. But let me ask you this: what are some common misconceptions about short-term rentals, and how do you address those with your clients?
Sure. I think one of the main topics that I try to cover, with potential owners or investors who are looking at short-term rentals, at least in our market out here, there's the idea, the everybody wants it all, and what I mean by that is, the idea of being able to own a property that we can personally enjoy, and then on top of that, be able to pull enough income to cover all of our expenses, particularly our mortgage, insurance, and all the carrying costs that go along with the property. And I would say there was a segment in time where the numbers tended to shift towards the side where it could be profitable. You could carry something in the black, and still get to enjoy it, have the profit there, and have a cash flow. Typically from an investment standpoint, I think probably that's part of what a lot of your viewers are looking at is, from an investment standpoint, does short-term rentals pencil out for me to own something and still be able to cash flow it and enjoy it? And I guess what I would say is, and this might not be the popular opinion, but we'll just give you the facts and always share the truth, is that generally speaking, it is not a cash flow type of an investment. Short-term rentals does not tend to be a cash flow positive situation. That being said, there are, and part of that is because we have to calculate the enjoyment factor. What I mean by that is, we have a lot of guests on the rental side of my business for sure. You come out here, you're going to spend $400 a night, or some of our nicer properties, $800-900 a night. So a guest could come out and spend $3,500, $5,000 for a nice weekend for their family. Maybe they're bringing in the grandkids and those kinds of things. And so, there is a tangible value to being able to use it. And so when you're factoring in the equation of, it's not just the numbers, you have to factor in how much is that personal use worth to you. And certainly, buying something at today's price and then being able to maybe enjoy it in a full-time capacity in 5 years. That's something that a lot of our owners or prospective owners are considering. There is a value to that, buying at today's price versus 5 years from now. What's that property going to be worth 5 years from now? Okay. That's part of what we got to evaluate when you're looking at it from an investment standpoint. How much can you save by buying today? The extra equation, though, is while I'm holding for 5 years, can I cash flow positive while I'm holding?
Right.
And I would say misconception wise, most people want the answer to be yes, I can cash flow while I'm holding for that 5 years. And I think that's where a lot of the times I have to kind of bring a little bit of reality, bring the numbers in, all the carrying costs. It doesn't always cash flow positive. So that's
Right.
probably
Well, the Palm Springs area is kind of like the Phoenix area where I'm at, in that we're kind of seasonal. And I know that you have many of your properties are golf course type properties.
correct.
And so do you feel some discontent sometimes with the investors when you're in the off season and you have the vacancies with the short term rentals? I mean, because obviously the bills are still due, the maintenance is still required, and now
Sure.
you have a lack of competition for the properties.
Sure. Yeah, and that's probably one of the toughest pills to swallow, right? When you're coming into it, if it's strictly an investment, scenario for our owner, that tends to be one of the biggest challenges. Is for us, we generally start generating revenue Thanksgiving week, and then we wrap up right about Memorial Day weekend. Best case scenario, we do have the music festivals out here, Coachella and Stagecoach.
Right.
But when those come to an end, then there's typically that June through October carrying time. And, of course, the first question they ask me is, hey, well, can't we just lower the price and get some more rentals in there? And it's a supply and demand issue. The inventory level increases dramatically, not just for those who are actually holding, trying to generate revenue, but all of the other ones who are maybe like, oh, I'm not going to rent during the prime time, but let me go ahead and jump in the market and see what I can grab from June to October. So,
Right.
the inventory level, not only, it's not only all of your normal
Right. So you've
competition.
got the snowbirds too that now are putting their property in the market because
Exactly.
they're leaving. They're going back to whatever Wisconsin where it's finally thawing out.
Correct. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
what trends do you see shaping up for the future of short-term rentals? I mean, how's that
Yeah.
shaping up?
I would say this, and it's been coming for quite some time, but I think it got exposed a bit during COVID, which is this constant. I would say it's this tension between full-time residents who live in communities versus those who own as a second property or as an investment property. And it's been, as long as I've been in the business, that tension's always been there. Full-time neighbors don't want, they don't want a hotel in the house next door to them, right? Um, Things have gotten a lot better as far as regulations from a code enforcement standpoint that have helped prevent the big parties and kind of the worst case scenarios. But I would say one of the big trends that I am seeing is that more and more communities, cities, municipalities have definitely gotten engaged in that regulation process. And so, in some places, I would say for a while, when we were kind of in that sweet spot where there was a ton of investment money coming into this space, it was like the Wild West. You jump into a community, even if there was no HOA, you just start throwing your house on Vrbo and Airbnb and just collect the checks.
Right.
Well, pretty much this is an industry now because of Airbnb and Vrbo that everyone knows about, and where you can find those properties. For both sides, right? The neighbors know where to look if to see if their
Right.
neighbor is on the market, as well as where the renters can go to find a great home. And so I would say that the code enforcement and the kind of the rules around regulations for short-term rentals is probably the biggest piece that has been coming in over the last 4 to 5 years. In our particular area where we live and work in La Quinta, when COVID came through, and there was all kinds of stuff that kind of played out. Essentially, the city here said, "Okay, well, no more short-term rentals in the majority of the areas here." And so there's a handful of areas where you can, and so prices for those properties went up. Those are the only places really here in our city where you can do nightly and weekly rentals. So the rest of our business has started to shift back towards doing monthly and seasonal rentals, a month to 3, 4, or 5 months at a
Right.
time. So that's probably been the biggest thing I've seen. And I don't think that there's really going to be anywhere that's going to be exempt from that. If it hasn't gotten there, it's on its way. And so from an investment standpoint, make sure you're asking those questions, before you plop in and jump an investment there.
So how have your investors dealt with that? I mean, obviously, if you had 3 properties in an HOA community and the city ordinance came in and then the HOA even tightened up the screws, what has that transition been for some of your investors? And
Yeah, so it tends to be it's always a bottom line, right? With investments, always about the bottom line, the return. And I would say that the difference between shifting a property to, at least in our market, to a monthly rental versus being able to do nightly and weekly has been anywhere from a 20% to 30% change in different as far as the return. For some of our owners, that was okay. Because again, when you come back to the bottom line and you look at the usage factor and you're putting that in, if you're getting some enjoyment out of the property, it's still better to hold even if your return's not
right.
quite as high. But for some of our owners who are strictly, investment related and it's just about the bottom line, for many of them, they've sold. Um, some of them did well if they bought, before COVID. Those who bought in COVID, and I'm seeing a lot of this, unfortunately, a lot of investors who got in during COVID when that rush was kind of still happening on the short-term rental side, and then now the ordinances have started catching up. Some of those investors have taken some hits because of the adjustment both to the income and then now with the saturation in the market on the resale side. So
Well, at least now you kind of got you know what the landscape's going to be like going
correct.
forward, and it's probably a little easier to target where your investment's a little bit safer in the short term.
Yep.
side of things,
Yep.
whether it's a non-HOA community or a city or town that is a little bit more open because they're trying to, to grow, versus an Indian Wells looking to, those type of areas.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and there's not every city is in a kind of an anti-rental short-term rental position. Some are very much welcoming it, and they're seeing the expansion and the growth that's come along with that. I mean, it pays the taxes, the city taxes from short-term rentals, pays for a lot of great services, fire and parks and police and things like that. And at least that message is starting to get out. So it's not necessarily every community is that way, but I do agree with you. I think at least now you're starting to know and be able to go into something with eyes wide open, knowing, kind of where things have landed as the dust has settled now on the ordinance side of things.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I appreciate the information. Obviously, short-term rentals has been, kind of a hot topic for, real estate brokerages this last few years with all the regulations. But that's all the time we have for this week's episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. I want to thank you for taking time to join me. And if you're watching today, I invite you to subscribe today and become part of our growing community. If you found this episode of short-term rentals helpful and beneficial, leave us a review. And if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me on our next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.